up is Professor Rupert Read, who teaches philosophy at the University of East Anglia, where he works alongside the world's leading environmental scientists. Rupert, you're really welcome. Until recently, Rupert was political strategist and national UK spokesperson for Extinction Rebellion, and he's a frequent guest on a range of national TV and radio programmes. He's also well known for having successfully campaigned in 2018 to get the BBC to stop its policy of putting climate deniers on the TV to balance out the climate scientists. So I feel that I owe you a big thank you for that, Rupert. It is something which is to the benefit of us all. Rupert, welcome to Alt Cop. We can't wait to hear what you have to say to us. I know is going to provoke us and definitely get us thinking outside the box. Over to you.
Well, thank you. It really is a pleasure and an honour to be the first keynote speaker here at this alternative COP. It's such an important event, and the first thing I want to say is that it's really important because it is vital now that business steps up to the plate. And it's vital for two reasons. The first reason is that it's worse than you think. It's almost certainly much worse than you think. The Paris Agreement is a paper tiger, an extraordinary diplomatic achievement, but one that points us towards about 3 or 4 degrees of global overheat. And that will mean the end of human civilization as we know it, the end of civilization certainly in this current form. That is a message which is very hard for people to receive, but it is the truth. And at the end of the day, it's only the truth that will set us free. And that's why the first demand of Extinction Rebellion, which I'm proud to have been in for its first great 2 years, is to tell the truth. And that's what I'm doing here this afternoon. And the second reason why business needs to step up is that governments are not stepping up, not nearly sufficiently. And I have now to tell you a really uncomfortable truth, that the COP next year, the one that's been postponed, is absolutely on course to fail. Just as we are on course to end our civilization, so this COP is on course to fail. And that's one of the reasons why we're on course to end the civilization, of course. The COP is on course to fail because the commitments of governments under the Paris Agreement, as I've already said, are woefully insufficient, and there is not yet the will to up those commitments. Moreover, some things have got worse since Paris was signed. Of course, we started to see our weather spinning out of control in the last few years, and we've also seen the coming to power of governments that are actively obstructing climate action or actively destroying the world. Now, I know what a lot of you are thinking at this point. Joe Biden has just been elected as president in the United States. Should that not give us hope? And let me be the first to say that it's obviously far, far better to have Biden as president than the absolute climate-denying fool and joke that was Donald Trump. But please do not take false reassurance from Biden's election. Biden will not put us on the path to climate salvation, because what we actually need is far bigger, far more of a transformation than is at present in the plans of any global leader. Even if you look at someone like Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand, she's getting onto the right track, but even she's not there yet. Biden is far, far off the pace. So we need everybody to step up, and that includes business. What then needs to happen over the next year? Well, the most crucial thing we need to do is to tell the truth that we are on course to crash our civilization, and that as part of that, the COP next year is on course to fail, by which I mean either there will be no agreement, or more likely there will be an agreement and it will be desperately short of what is actually needed. And it will contain all sorts of bad things as well, such as biofuels, which are destructive of the world's forests and remaining ecosystems. Only if we are honest about this will we actually then start to find the courage to step up and do what is necessary now and over the next year to change this fatality. People sometimes say to me, Rupert, you need to give us more hope. You need to give people a positive, optimistic vision. Otherwise, they're just going to be put off. I reply to them, false hope is worse than no hope at all. And if you think that we can just do the same thing over the next year, if you think we can just write some letters to our MPs and try and be a bit better as green consumers, if you think that that's going to be enough to put humankind on the road to recovery, to mean that there's going to be a proper green reset from the coronavirus, to mean that there's going to be a decent agreement at the COP next year, then I'm afraid you're living on the wrong planet. The fact of the matter is that only an unprecedented mobilization will change the fate that is in store for us over the coming year and the coming years. If we tell this truth, that the COP is going to fail unless something totally extraordinary happens, then that unprecedented mobilization starts to become possible. Why? Well, firstly, because if people start to understand that governments around the world do not intend to actually solve this crisis, then grief and dismay and indeed rage will grow. And one of my earnest hopes for the next year is that rather than planning everything around trying to campaign for the COP to go well, we reserve some of our energy for campaigning for what comes after the COP, for after it almost certainly fails to do what is necessary. I would love to see us planning towards the world's biggest ever day of protest and direct action, the day after the COP fails. Now, again, some of you are going to be thinking at this point, but Rupert, isn't that a kind of counsel of despair? Aren't you giving up before the thing has even happened? But what I'm saying to you is, if we carry on the way we have done before, if we try to just campaign as if we can have one more heave and make everything is okay, we are bound to fail. The only way the story changes is if we say now that the emperor has no clothes, if we say now that we are headed towards civilizational collapse, that the COP is headed to fail, and that we need to completely change the game. So we need a far bigger mass mobilization than has thus far been achieved. What Extinction Rebellion has done has been splendid. What Fridays for Future has done has been amazing, historic. We need to have mobilizations that are 10 or 20 times the scale of those. I want to suggest to you a way in which that might happen. I have a book coming out in January. It's called Parents for a Future. My idea is that what we really need in 2021 is everybody who is a parent, or indeed a grandparent, an aunt or uncle, a guardian, a godparent, anybody, and that's pretty much every single one of us, who has some direct personal stake in the next generation, needs to understand now that no one is riding to the rescue, that you cannot outsource this any longer, that governments, politicians, even scientists, even business people on their own are not going to fix this. And let me be very clear about that. We need business to absolutely step up in the kind of way that Brewdog is seeking to do. But business without people, business without citizens will not be enough. So my idea is this: let the parents of the world, let everyone with a stake in the next generation start to mobilize now towards making 2021 the year in which we say it doesn't carry on like this. We have to change the game. We have to mean it. We can't outsource this any longer. And my belief is that when people feel in their hearts, when they feel in their hearts the love they have for their children and grandchildren and nieces and nephews, and when they understand that they cannot protect those young people any longer in the conventional ways, you cannot protect your children any longer just by doing things like sending them to a good school and trying to make sure they don't get mugged and so on. They are not going to have a good life unless we change everything fast in terms of the climate and ecological emergency. When people understand that, then I think they may be willing to rise up, to mobilize in far greater numbers than has happened thus far. And that is precisely what we need if 2021 is not going to be just another year of failure. And my last remark is this idea of a much bigger mobilization, what I call Parents for a Future. This needs backers. And this again is somewhere where business could come in. What we really need is an eco-equivalent of the Koch brothers, the dastardly duo who've poured millions upon millions into destroying the environment, into coal, into deregulation, etc., in the United States and beyond. We need an eco-equivalent of that. If there's just a couple of you watching this event today who are ready to step up to fulfill that kind of role, then you could truly make history. And what that means, this isn't pocket change. We need millions, we need tens of millions to come behind this most righteous, this most vital ever of clauses. We need other things as well, of course. We need businesses to change what they do themselves. Crucially, we need businesses to allow their employees to take part in radical protests, even strikes. That would be a wonderful change for the better in 2021. Think about that. But most of all, we need citizens to mobilize in unprecedented numbers. And I believe it can happen through the mobilization of the feeling of protection and the horror of loss that parents around the world are, I think, just starting to wake up to. And it needs support. So my final remark is, if you happen to be one of the people watching this who has some real money, then please think about what you're going to do with that. Don't just think about how you change your business. Don't even just think about how you change in terms of lobbying and so forth. Think about how you can perhaps directly intervene to back the movement that the 2020s needs, if there is going to be a future. Thank you.
Thank you, Rupert, so much. You have challenged us, spoken some harsh truths, and motivated us to look at these issues from a different perspective. I am a parent. I am one of these parents that needs to be part of your mass mobilization. But I know I am motivated by love for my kids, by a desire for them to grow up in a safe world. And I agree with you that looking at this through a lens of love and compassion could be a really powerful change maker. So Thank you so much, Rupert, for sharing those insights with us.